I cannot believe I'm about to say this, but Fast X is the closest that we are ever going to get to a live-action Marvel vs. DC crossover movie. I mean, think about it, right? We have Groot, Ratcatcher, Captain Marvel, Peacemaker, and Black Adam all in one movie. Take that information how you will, but for a fake Marvel vs. DC movie, I'm pretty satisfied. So Fast X is a brand new installment into the Fast and Furious franchise, a franchise that has been going on for way too long, but god damn it, I love it. The film is directed by Luis Leterrier, and it stars a very stacked cast consisting of returning faces such as Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez, along with new faces such as Jason Momoa and Brie Larson. Alright, so I'm not going to explain the plot of Fast X because that would require me to use my brain. And we all know, when it comes to watching any film of the Fast and Furious franchise, you are to turn your brain off completely. Don't question it, don't overthink it, just embrace the chaos. Even if I were to explain the plot, it wouldn't make sense. This is the Fast and Furious. Nothing makes sense anymore. If I could be honest, I don't really watch Fast and Furious for the plot. I watch it just to see people do the most humanly impossible stunts imaginable. And boy, oh boy, is it in here. I absolutely love how unapologetically ridiculous this franchise has become. Yeah, the stunts in here are pretty ridiculous and unrealistic, but that's kind of the beauty of the Fast and Furious franchise. It is so unapologetically unhinged and ridiculous, and I just love it for it. I love a franchise that knows what it is. Now, the Fast and Furious is a very, very self-aware franchise. However, I would argue that in F9, they were way too self-aware, especially when it came to the meta humor. In Fast X, there is a little bit of meta humor, but it works somehow, some way. It just does. This may be kind of a hot take, but the ridiculousness in this movie, don't get me wrong, it is very, very present here. But I don't think this movie was as crazy as its predecessors. If you really look back at the movies that came before, I don't think none of the craziness in this movie stood out compared to its predecessors, except for that scene with the dam. But everything else was kind of like, okay, yeah, that was crazy, but we've seen crazier. And that is not to say the movie is boring. The movie is not boring at all. It definitely has some wild wackiness in here. However, when you're in a franchise, right, and you get to a point where you're exceeding the craziness with every single installment, you have to ask yourself, can we really go any further? Like, I'm gonna be honest, after F9, where they literally went into outer space, I don't really know how you can top that. And truth be told, I don't think there was really any stunt in this particular movie that stood out compared to that scene. You know what I mean? Now, granted, maybe they're saving it for Fast XX or Fast XXX. I think it's supposed to be like, what? A 3-part movie finale, I think. I don't know. At first it was one movie, then it became 2 movies, now it's 3 movies. I don't know. The only thing they can do that can really top that, if they go back in time. I'm just kidding, y'all. Please do not do that. But I wouldn't be mad if y'all did. I can't believe I'm saying this, but this movie was very similar to Avengers Infinity War. In 2 ways, let me explain. First and foremost, this movie has a very, very stacked cast, bringing in old cast from the predecessor films and bringing in a whole new cast in this film right here. It's a very, very big movie as far as like action, cast, like there is a lot. But unlike Infinity War, Fast X struggles to juggle its plethora of characters. There are so many characters in this movie. Now, again, it was great seeing everyone return, but I wish that they didn't cut away from their storyline so quick just to move on to the next, because keep in mind, this movie's only like, what, 2 hours and 20 minutes? But even then, there were way too many characters. Even with a runtime like that, Infinity War did not struggle, but here, Fast X, yeah, it struggled with balancing between all these characters, and yeah. But with the second aspect, this movie ends on a cliffhanger. Believe it or not, it legitimately ends on a cliffhanger. Very similar to Infinity War. And if you know the ending to Infinity War, then, well, that is pretty much the ending to Fast X. But one thing that I will compliment this movie on is the casting of Jason Momoa as the main antagonist. I thought he was fantastic. You can tell Jason had such a blast filming this. Jason Momoa plays this unhinged yet charismatic and charming psychopath whose character was kind of a blend between the Batman Arkham Joker and Pagan Min from Far Cry 4. This character is kind of like Oh my god. He's kind of the Thanos of the Fast and Furious franchise. Only difference is he is not as cleverly written as Thanos, but here I think he makes a pretty satisfying villain, and Jason Momoa just absolutely kills it. But I will say, throughout this entire film, this movie has some very awkward editing. Like, one moment, there'll be a fight going on between two characters, and then it ends, and it boom, cuts right next to this next set of characters. And I was like, whoa, can we run that last scene back, let it flesh out a little bit more, please? And it's not like it was during one particular scene. It was throughout the entire movie. Just this really awkward editing, cutting from one scene to the next immediately, and I didn't like that. Also, I did not like Han here. Han did legitimately nothing in this movie. The only reason they kept him here was so he could tie into the F9 post-credit scene. But even after that, he served no purpose in this story. He should have stayed dead. And yes, there are a couple of predictable moments in this movie. But I mean, it's a Fast and Furious movie. What you expect? In the end, Fast X. I had a fun time. Now, if you already were not a fan of this franchise, I don't think this movie is going to convince you otherwise. But if you already were a fan of the franchise, I think you're going to have some enjoyment with this movie. Some scenes you may question because it's going to stand out too much to the point in which you just cannot turn your brain off on that particular scene. But overall, it's a Fast and Furious movie. It's pretty fun, unapologetic, and if you're like me, you just want to see dumb shit fly on screen? Hey, this is the movie for you. So, plugging Fast X into the rank system, I'm going to place this one into the pass zone. If there is one thing that I have learned from this franchise, is that in life there are only two things you need, and that is family and speed. And also the pursuit of lunacy. But yeah, that is pretty much my review for Fast X. Let me know down in the comment section below what you guys thought of Fast X. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Are you excited for the next 2 installments? Would you ever wear a wife beater to your own wedding? Let me know down in the comment section below, and I will see you all in the next one.
After working up the nerve almost equal in size, I walked around with the iron for any wrinkle in time. I paid a piece of my mind for every nickel and dime, but never less than a 5 and never slept on a job. A killer crept on your squad, yet never left the garage, where your guide was close enough to see the flesh of his eyes. Get to the button and press is what the message advised. What's the threat behind the vest is where the testament lies.